Welcome back. It's great to see you again. I appreciate you clicking on that button and watching this exact video. We're talking some more about you being a pilot superhero. A superhero with superpowers that maybe need a little tweaking to be at their best performance level ever. Let's face it, pilots talk a lot, maybe too much. And why not? We are awesome. We can fly. I mean, how many people can really say that? Just a fraction of a percent of the overall population. So if you're a pilot, and why wouldn't you be, you are automatically cooler than the average person. But we need to listen. And that's a superpower that we really do have to develop. We're often thinking about what we're going to say next, and we don't think so much about what's going on and what did I hear and what can I do about it? Let's face it, the hills may be alive with the sound of music, but you need to be on your toes for the sound of ATC or other pilots or whatever's going on with your airplane, that sudden clunking sound that wasn't there a minute ago. Listening is more important than most of us think. There's a basic rule of communication that really does take into account both the talking part and the listening part. Good communication means the speaker and the listener perceive the same message. You ever play that game telephone when you were a kid where you have a ring of maybe 10, 15 people and somebody whispers something very, very simple to the person next to them. And then it goes to the next and the next and the next around the circle. And when it comes back, it's not the same message at all. Even if it was something simple like, I like chocolate chip cookies. By the time it gets to the other side, it's like, did you see what Marge did out behind the barn last night? Unbelievable, but it happens. That happens in the airplane too. We have to be listening and we have to pay attention so we can form a mental picture of what's happening around us. And that's true of whether we're in controlled airspace or uncontrolled airspace. It doesn't matter if we're at an airport with a tower or without a tower. We need to be using that radio. We need to be using our ears, and we need to be aware of what's happening around us well enough that we can form a mental picture that gives us insight to keep us safe. As a pilot, listen more, talk less. And when you do talk, be very brief and very specific. Here's a basic rule. If I'm in a non-towered environment, and I want to make a radio call, I'm going to tell who I am, where I am, and what I want. Conversely, if I'm in a towered environment, I want to share this information. Who am I? Where am I? What do I want? Did you see the similarity? They're exactly the same. Both environments actually have a lot in common. So let's take a look at the towered environment, the non-towered environment, the controlled environment, the non-controlled environment, and see how we can listen to get a picture of what's happening and how we can speak in a way that shares pertinent information with others without using up a whole lot of bandwidth or a whole lot of time or annoying people on the other end of the call. Now, this is true whether we're using that towered environment as a destination or whether we're just transitioning through their airspace. Same thing for the non-towered environment. We may not be actually landing there, but we're flying over. There are reasons to communicate in both cases. And remember, when I say communicate, communication is a two-way street. It's not just about us pushing the button and talking. It's more about us listening until we have to push the button and talk. Whether I'm flying into a towered airport or a non-towered airport, it's a good idea to give them a call if you're going to be coming through their airspace or coming to their airspace a fair distance out so everybody has a sense of what's coming, whether everybody is a controller or whether it's a pilot in another aircraft. They may be planning on taking off, they may be in the pattern, they may be landing, they may be transitioning, it doesn't matter. The more accurate your description of who you are, where you are, and what you want, the better picture they have of what's going on, and the same goes for you. The more accurate they are in their communications, the better you understand what you're about to get into. You may think, I don't need a mental picture. I know which runway they're using. I'm fine. I can just fly in there. Well, is there somebody mowing grass beside the field and that lawnmower person doesn't necessarily know not to pull out on the runway in front of you? Is there construction going on? Did an airplane just land on its nose gear, collapse it, and become disabled on the runway? Yes, I've faced that coming into a non-towered airport with one runway. Suddenly, it's closed. Wouldn't it be nice if I knew that 10 or 15 miles out where I could divert someplace else rather than flying to the now closed airport and circling around with a bunch of other confused pilots until we all independently figure out what we're going to do. That's not great. Listening can resolve that. Now, being a genius superhero pilot who has the superpower of being able to fly, and that's big stuff, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to a non-towered airport. Radios aren't even required. I don't have to talk to anybody. Darn right, you don't. There is no rule that you have to talk to anybody. But just because you don't have to doesn't mean you shouldn't. Sometimes being safe means exceeding the regulations and doing the smart thing, not the required thing. Handheld radios are inexpensive, easy to use, and they work really well. Go ahead and use a radio, even if you're in an aircraft without an electrical system, even if you're not required to. Just out of respect for other pilots and out of a sense of self-preservation, make radio calls using a handheld if that's all that's available to you. Now reflect back on your own life for just a moment. Have you ever seen the look on someone's face when they conveyed a very clear message to you, but you didn't respond the way they thought? Perhaps you were 14, 15 years old and your mom or dad said, "Hey, I'm going down to the store. Go ahead and clean the kitchen while I'm gone and I'll make dinner when I get back." And they get back 45 minutes later and you're still laying on the couch. Do you remember the experience? Was that a fulfilling evening for you? Probably not. Or maybe you didn't take the garbage out, or dad comes home from work after it's been snowing all day and the driveway is just packed with snow while you're playing a video game in your room. Not a great look. This is one of those things where we have expectations. We have them, and so do the other people we're interacting with. Let's consider how we speak, because that connects to how they listen and how we communicate accurately with each other. When you're flying into an airport, towered airport, non-towered airport, identify yourself by make, model, and N number. A lot of people want to add color, and that's okay, but don't use just color. Don't say white Cessna, yellow Piper. It's too generic. Remember, if you were to call up ATC and identify yourself by color, they're going to come back and say, "What's your N number?" Many people think, well, if I don't tell them the color, they can't see me. Well, most air traffic controllers can't see you anyhow. The people who are the en route controllers never see the aircraft. They're just looking at a screen. But your N number is unique to you. There's only one of those. So identify yourself by make and model. Cessna Skyhawk, November 12345. After that, they know exactly who you are and what's going on. Maybe they'll abbreviate it, maybe they won't. If they keep saying 12345 instead of just 345, you keep saying 12345. There's a reason for that. There may be another aircraft on the channel, even one that you can't hear, that's using a similar call sign. So identify yourself correctly because it simplifies everything. And why have one standard for non-towered and another standard for towered? One standard for uncontrolled airspace, another standard for controlled airspace. It makes no sense. Just do it the right way all the time. Life gets easier. That takes care of the who am I, but where am I? Try to be specific. Don't tell them you're over grandma's house because they don't know where grandma's house is. I was once approaching my home airport from the north when I was on a cross-country trip, and I heard somebody call in that they were over the lake. Now that would be helpful in some places, but my town has 60 lakes within the city limits. 60. Over the lake means nothing. You could be in any direction. Make sure you say something that makes sense. Look at the charts you've got. The VFR charts have a little flag where you've got something that's an established reporting point. Maybe it's a highway intersection. Maybe it's the peak of a mountain. Maybe it's a power plant. There are places out there, but give them something they can use, or just identify yourself as, "I'm 10 miles south," if you're actually 10 miles south. If you're southeast or southwest, say that, because that's where the controller's going to look, to the south. And if you're over there somewhere or over there somewhere, they're looking in the wrong place, and that might make them just the tiniest bit cranky. The last part of that communication is, what are my intentions? What do I want? Remember, it's who am I? Where am I? What do I want? My intentions are pretty simple, and we can keep that very brief. I don't have to tell them my itinerary for the day. They don't care where I'm going for lunch, and that's true of ATC and the other pilots. They don't care who's picking me up at the airport. They just want to know, what am I planning? Am I transitioning the airspace at 2,500? Do I intend to do a full stop landing? Am I with a student? I'd like to come in and have the option. Just tell them what you want. Cessna Skyhawk 12345, 10 miles south, inbound full stop with the information. Now we're good. That's all we have to do. Everybody that can hear us, whether they're tower controllers or whether they're other pilots, now has a clear understanding of where we are, who we are, what the performance of our aircraft is, because we all know what a Skyhawk is, or a Warrior, or an Archer, and they know what we intend to do, and they can plan their route accordingly. Believe it or not, if you work on the superpower of listening and then put a little bit of thought into the superpower of speaking clearly, briefly, and specifically, everything about your flying adventure is going to get better. It really will. Give it a try. And while you're giving it a try, click the like button. Leave a comment down below. Tell us what you think about using the radio and your communication skills, both out, speaking, and in, listening, to be a better, safer pilot who generally has a better time in the air. And of course, subscribe to the channel because we just love seeing that number stack up. Thanks so much. I'll see you back here next time on MadPropsAero.